of the severance agreement and release. All in favor of the severance agreement and release of claims, please vote. 4, 5, opposed, abstained. How do you guys vote?
I'm voting against this. This is still a railroad shop, and we're lacking our fiduciary.
Ms. Wilson, you don't have the floor. I'm just asking how you vote.
Y'all don't have good sense.
Mr. Chair, are you through with that?
No, ma'am. I'm still trying to get my vote here. The vote is 5-1, and Mr. Waldrep abstained. So it's 5-1-1. It passes again.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Floyd.
Mr. Chairman, in form of a motion, I think that I want to make a motion that we at this time hire our new administrator, and I would like to I would like to put in the motion that we hire Michael Cunningham. I have contracts available.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
Okay.
Yeah. You need another one?
Your Honor, if I may continue the question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Waldrep, can you describe for us how you felt as that meeting on November 18th, 2008 took place?
Objection. Why does how he feels make a difference in this case?
I think it's relevant, Your Honor, state of mind. It shows what was happening at the time.
I'm going to ask you to rephrase it. I'm not sure.
Let
Feelings are one thing.
me ask it this way then.
All right, please do. Thank you.
Mr. Waldrep, can you describe for us how the meeting took place in your view in terms of the procedures that were followed?
John, well, cumulative, we didn't just watch the exact thing that's about to testify.
Well, I'm going to allow him to state how he felt the meeting moved forward. I'll let him go ahead and do that.
I was, first of all, I was shocked and surprised. I'd never seen a public body act in that way before without notice to the public or notice to the body itself. They were taking that action, and I was, of course, greatly disappointed and shocked.
Were there other meetings, regularly scheduled Anderson County Council meetings that were on the calendar that would occur between that November 18th meeting and the end of the calendar year?
Yes, there were meetings. That meeting was in November. I think we had a couple of meetings, maybe 3. I'm not sure that we could have had notice of such a contract, and there was at least a couple of meetings in December, as I recall. We usually have their scheduled meetings.
Was there any reason that you could see why this issue of Mr. Preston's severance agreement had to be conducted at this meeting without being placed on the agenda?
No, I couldn't understand why, unless there was a tactical reason for Mr. Preston's attorney to accelerate this process and to get it done in a fashion that's the only reason I can think of.
I move to strike that.
I'll sustain the objection, strike that response as to what tactics the attorney may have had in his mind.
I'm going to move on to a different question, Mr. Waldrep. Was Mr. Preston present at that meeting that we just observed?
Yes, he was.
Did you ever see him leave the meeting?
I don't recall seeing him leave the meeting. He might have moved his chair or something. And I think when Mr. Cunningham was appointed.
Had you been given any indication that the agenda for that meeting was going to be amended to discuss the topics of both Mr. Preston's severance agreement and the hiring of Mr. Cunningham?
None whatsoever.
At some point, the severance agreement for Mr. Preston was in fact passed out at the meeting, correct?
Was it
At some point, the severance agreement, which I believe you have in front of you still, Mr.
Yeah.
Waldrep, Exhibit 7,
uh-huh.
was that passed out at the meeting at some point?
I believe it was, so yes.
Had you ever seen that severance agreement prior to the November 18, 2008 meeting?
No, sir.
Did you have time to study it sufficiently to be in a position to vote on it that night?
No, sir. Didn't.
Did you observe whether other council members present at the meeting actually took the time to read the document when it was passed out?
I didn't notice that they had. It appeared to me that they had read it sometime before they got to the meeting.
What type of substantive debate did you have about the severance agreement at that meeting?
What type of?
Substantive debate about the content.
Well, I had a lot of questions about, first of all, whether it was justified. Secondly, whether or not the amounts that were put in were appropriate. And that concerned me.
Right. It was non-responsive. I mean, he's not even answering the questions that are being asked at this point.
I will ask the witness to be responsive. You may proceed.
Mr. Waldrep, listen to the question if you would. My question was, what type of substantive debate, if any, was held during that meeting
I'm sorry.
about the severance agreement?
I didn't know of any. I couldn't see of any debate. The argument seemed to be about whether the procedure, whether we should even be looking at this agreement at that time.
And at the same meeting, November 18, 2008, of County Council, would you agree that we saw a document passed out that showed a proposed transfer of county funds that would be used to pay for the severance agreement for Mr. Preston?
Yes, that's all that.
If I may approach, Your Honor.
You may.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Claims Exhibit number 8, which has been pre-admitted. Is that the document, Mr. Waldrep, that was passed out at the November 18, 2008 meeting
Yeah.
concerning the transfers?
Yes, I see it. I mean, this is what they presented. But that was the first time I'd seen it.
Were there motions to reconsider that were made at that meeting?
Yes, it were.
What did you make of that?
Well, council had gotten sort of sophisticated, I think, in parliamentary procedure to the extent that they realized that the people that kind of running the show that night, that if they made a motion for reconsideration, and that would cut off any further opportunity for council to meet at a separate time, subsequent time, to change their decision on the contract.
The final vote that we saw, Mr. Waldrep, on the reconsideration of Mr. Preston's severance agreement was a vote that was 5-1 with you abstaining. Why did you abstain from that last vote?
Well, things were moving along, I think, at a pretty rapid clip. I was trying to factor in what the strategy was that they were using to cut off debate. I don't know if I was thinking exactly clearly when I made that, what the implications were going to be with regard to reconsideration or non-reconsideration. And because I just didn't feel comfortable with the whole thing, I disapproved of everything, I just decided I wouldn't vote on that issue.
And at some point, we saw Ms. Floyd handed out a proposed contract to hire Mr. Cunningham as the new county administrator. Do you remember that?
That's correct.
And may I approach one last time, Your Honor?
You may.
Yes, I'm going to show you Mr. Waldrep has been pre-admitted as Claims Exhibit number 9. Is that the proposed master employment agreement that was handed out by Ms. Floyd to hire Mr. Cunningham as the new county administrator?
Yes, this is what was handed out.
Had you seen that document before the November 18, 2008 meeting?
No, sir, I had not seen this document. I was just checking the the dates on this document here. I think it appears to be dated 19th of November, 2008.
So the day after the meeting?
Yes,
Is that still the document that was actually passed out?
that appears to be the document that was passed around.
It appears to you, though, that when looking at it, it was actually signed or executed on the next day. Is that right?
Yes.
Did it surprise you that Ms. Floyd had that contract already prepared and in her hand for this meeting?
Well, yeah, it surprised me. She just pulled it out of her pocketbook. She had several copies and pulled it out of her pocketbook.
We just watched the video that she did not pull out.
Well, the videotape speaks for itself, and of course, you can cross-examine the witnesses to this, the extent of his recollection. Videotape is in evidence, so I'll probably take a look at it for a third or fourth time before I do this case. You may proceed.
Mr. Waldrep, were any inquiries made of you as to how you might vote on a severance agreement for Mr. Preston before this meeting happened?
Was there any?
Anybody asked you how you might vote on a severance agreement before the meeting?
Before? No.
Did council ever consider the remaining items that were left on the agenda after it voted on the contract to employ Mr. Cunningham that night?
They did not.
I'm going to show you now, if you don't mind putting Exhibit 7 in front of you, which is the severance agreement for Mr. Preston.
Okay,
Tell
let
me
me see
what
if
it
I've got them all. Yeah, okay.
If you look at the severance agreement, and if you turn to Section 4 of the severance agreement,
Right.
are you there? I'm also going to show it on the screen. How much did the severance agreement provide for in payments to or for the benefit of Mr. Preston?
Well, it was a total of $1,139,833 plus a 2006 Yukon here.
Okay, and how much of the $1,139,833 figure was attributed to the value of the severance provision of Mr. Preston's master employment agreement?
Looks like it's 700. It's the severance benefit.
Right.
Oh, it looks like it's $780,575.
And how much of that severance, total severance payout to or on Mr. Preston's behalf was attributed to the value of the county purchasing retirement service credit on Mr. Preston's behalf?
It appears to be $359,258.
Did you think those payments were justified to Mr. Preston?
No, sir.
Did you ever hear any explanation as to the legal basis that would justify the payment of those amounts?
Not really. We had no debate on that, no figures to look at or to determine or to compare to anything else. And so these were, it seemed like pretty much the same figures that Mr. Hoskins had asked for.
Your Honor, I don't have any further questions from Mr. Waldrep. Would you like me to retrieve those exhibits for the clerk or leave them with him?
Are those the actual exhibits?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you might want, well, you might get over and give them back. I don't know what Mr. Davis wants to get into.
I'll send those back into order.
All right. Are you all right? Hope there's no
Well,
charge. Hope there's no extra charge for that. Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have.
Yes, sir. Glad you're okay. Davis, you may proceed.
Your Honor, I could only hope to be half as cat-like as my opposing counsel.
I don't recommend the lawyer to do that very often. You may proceed.
Mr. Waldrep, I'd like to back up just a minute and go back to a little bit about your background. You've been practicing law since 1968?
64.
1964?
That's correct.
You were on Anderson County Council in 1990?
I was on county council in 1990, 91, something in that era.
You went to the Senate,
Yeah,
served there 12 years.
I did.
You returned to county council somewhere in the 06 timeframe.
Yeah, that's correct.
Served for another 4 years.
No, not a full term. I served a term and then I served about 3/4 of a term because I had to resign and to be trustee at South Carolina State University.
You started in 06, right?
I think so.
And you ended in 2010, according to your testimony on direct.
I think so.
You served District 1.
I did.
This lawsuit was filed in 2009, correct?
I guess it is, whatever the record shows.
You were on county council in 2009, right?
Yes, I was. I was for a while until I resigned.
While you were on county council, it's true, is it not, that you became familiar with the Anderson County Code provisions that relate to when council members can and cannot vote in relation to financial interests that they may have?
I think so, yeah.
You know those provisions, right?
I think so, too.
And then there's another provision in the Anderson County Code that relates to ethics as pertaining to confidential information. You know that provision too, don't you?
Well, yeah, generally.
Now, Your Honor, if you don't mind, I'd like to approach. I think I have a way that we may be able to accelerate.
You may approach the witness.
And Your Honor, if I may approach you as well, I have a binder too. And what this binder is, Your Honor, is it's the exhibits that I'm going to ask some questions about. And what I hoped was that by virtue of our flipping through them in the order I'm going to ask, it would help the court, it would help the witness, it would help opposing counsel just stay on the same page and move more quickly.
You may proceed.
Under the tab that is Defendant's Exhibit 119, Mr. Waldrep, is this Anderson County Code Provision Section 2-37?
I see.
And what I'd like to turn your attention to, sir,
I see Muni Code up there. I didn't know whether this was specifically labeled for Anderson County.
well, let me turn your attention to page 4. Can you look at the paragraph that's numbered 4? Does that paragraph state in part, and I quote, "When members may not vote, no member shall vote on any matter in which he/she has a personal or financial interest greater than that of the general Anderson County public, or in which he/she is otherwise disqualified by any state or county law or regulation," end quote.
Right.
I read that correctly, right?
I see that.
Can you turn to the next? Tab, which is Defendants 120.
Right.
Mr. Waldrep, is this Anderson County Code Section 2-288?
I see that.
And underneath Section A2, it says Disclosure of Confidential Information. Do you see that?
Yes.
And does that provision state, and I quote, "No official or employee shall, without proper legal authorization, disclose confidential information concerning property, government, or affairs of the county, nor shall he use such information to advance the financial or other private interests of himself or others," end quote?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Waldrep, I'd like to turn your attention to somewhat of a different topic. If you could look at Defense Exhibit 136.
Your Honor, this is one of the ones we object to, this exhibit. We object based on hearsay and unfounded.
Yes, it's sought to introduce it. So it's not before me. Technically, are you going there?
I'm going to introduce this exhibit into the record, Your Honor.
All right, then maybe we'll address it right now. And I'll get ahead of ourselves.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I think it may be a little bit premature, because I think if I ask a couple questions.
well, I'm gonna let him ask his foundation questions, and when the time comes, you have the right to make your objection. Yes, sir, Member C.
Mr. Waldrep, you were on county council as of February 7th, 2008, were you not?
Yes, I think so.
And if you look at Defense Exhibit 136, it reflects a carbon copy down the bottom. Do you see that?
Yes.
And it reflects all council members received this letter, does it not?
Yes.
And you received this letter in February 2008, didn't you?